Jay Beatty, Sacred Minds. Who's he?
Well, there's a heap in the news at the moment, and consider what's going on. Considering what's going on here in Australia anyway, but have a look at this. So here we are. This is the Australian, and there's a few things going on. Look at Keir Starmer. So that they've just had an election for their council. So 5,000 local councillors across England have just been voted on, and Labor has held on to just 13% at this point in the counting compared to 33% last time. So basically Keir is going down. Why is he going down? Well, he's got dodgy policies. So he's put in he's a bit like Australia actually. He's increased debt. There's no safety for Jews. People are getting knifed, killed. It's no longer safe. He didn't support any wars, and so, he sort of sits on the fence a lot of the time. He doesn't really do too much because he's trying to, sort of placate his electorate. Well, a lot of other people have just felt really quite put out by that, so they're voting against him. So it's basically Nigel Farage that there he is. Nigel Farage there is going to defeat this guy. And is there a photo for him of him down there? Anyway, he's not. The Greens are also. Oh, that guy there, Mark Adderley. What an evil man. Just anyway, I'm commenting without giving too much background understanding. But at the end of the day, the UK, they are really. It's a reflection of what's going on here in Australia, and it's not pretty. So I think people like Albo need to look at what's going on with Keir Starmer and the elections over there and make an adjustment if that's what he's about. I mean, tomorrow we're going to get the budget is going to be handed down, and it's going to hit, I think, goods and services, not goods and services, a capital gains tax, and also your negative gearing. So people that are trying to get ahead, they're going to be hit. And so if you have got an extra property, that's going to be a hit for you. But what they really do need to do, and the same is with Keir Starmer as well over there in the UK, they just need to pull up spending. Like, spending is out of control. It's like a freight train. And so when you are spending more than you're earning, so you actually got to cut spending with regard to the real amount that you're that you're actually spending, not just according to the amount that is going up in CGI or anything like that. You've actually got to cut real spending. So things that are that are costing you money now that are running out of control. So numbers of politicians, or a program that is running badly or inefficiently, like our NDIS, that just needs to be cut where it can be, or where there's other inefficiencies in governments. I would say after they leave office, cut their, why do we keep paying them after they leave office here in Australia? We do. So it's a huge burden on the Australian economy. But anyway, this guy, he is going down. But let's go back. I wanted to comment on this. So these guys here, the ISIS brides, this is pretty bad. So these girls have come into Australia, left 10 years ago, 2015, left, said, that's it, Australia, it sucks, we're out of here. So they did, they left and went to Syria, married some ISIS fighters, had some kids to them, and so gave up their passports, or had their passports taken away because they were supporting a terror group. So while they were over there, did a whole heap of wicked things, evil things. So Yazidi girls were taken as sex slaves. So these girls were part of that. And you can say, oh, well, like they were coerced. No, they weren't. They went over there. They made a decision. They knew exactly what was going on. And, of course, they lost the fight. So ISIS lost. They got into a Syrian camp. And situation within, conditions in a Syrian camp aren't really pleasant, not very nice at all. So I'd prefer to go back to Australia, wouldn't you? So that's what they've done. They've appealed to a few people in Australia and a councillor, obviously, down in Ahmed Alouf. I've forgotten his name, but anyway, just a guy who's just said, yeah, I'll help you, I'll sponsor you. So Ahmed, he's helped them out, and he's just a wicked man. There's no doubt about it. How we tolerate this guy is incredible. But anyway, he's helped them, brought them back, and here they are. They've been detained. They're in Silverwater, I think, and they're awaiting trial basically. So they've been denied bail. And yeah, they're going to go through. So they're getting psych tests, PTSD and all of those things. Well, of course, yeah, they've got PTSD. I mean, but what do you do with this situation? What do you say with regard to this? So, from the surface, you say it's a joke. Tony Burke is the one who's reinstituted these passports. And he said, we're not going to help them and all. Well, they did. They've given them passports. I mean, they didn't cancel them. They didn't, they've reissued them. They've got them. And now we're paying a fortune. You can't say, we're not helping repatriate. Yes, you are, mate. They came in. You could have stopped them even getting on the plane. They came on the plane. You could have stopped them at the airport. You didn't do that. You've had federal officers take them. They've been arrested into Silverwater and elsewhere. So they're now arrested. And now we have to bear the burden. So what do we do with that as Australians? Well, I think most Australians would say, well, this sucks. This we're already in debt, $1 trillion. And now we're having to fork out for, these lovely ladies that, want a bit of some comfort and ease now. And, we've done, we're not having a party over there, so we're going to come back. And they will cause havoc here, no doubt. You go through our legal system, they will be let out. They might get a few years and then get out. But at the end of the day, it's going to be better than living in a Syrian camp. And they will be out in society, and we will have to give them houses, or we will put them on a welfare check of some sort, and we will be educating their kids from this point, because you've got to look after kids, right? So they're going to be schooled, and it's all on your dime, Australia. It's all on you'll be paying for it. So what about Christians? So as Christians, what does the Bible say regarding that stuff? Well, you're called to love your neighbour as yourself. You're called to love your enemy. So what does the Word of God say regarding the government and the government's responsibility? Well, I just wanted to show you this, because this is pretty important. So this is Romans chapter 13, and you should be able to see it there. So, let every person be subject to governing authorities, for there is no authority except from God. So this is the Apostle Paul. He's writing to the Romans. He hasn't been to Rome yet. He's writing to them. And, of course, the governing authorities, well, that's Caesar. So you've got Caesar on the throne. At this point, it's Nero. He's not a very nice guy. He's awful to Christians. But Paul says you've got to be subject to them. Why? That those that exist, so governing authorities, have been instituted by God. Well, you might not like that, but God's sovereign. He's in control. He's allowed it to happen. Therefore, whoever resists the authorities resists what God has appointed. So, okay, there's some dodgy governments, some dodgy rulers, you've got dictators and all the rest of it. Well, Paul says they're appointed by God. And those who resist will incur judgment. Yeah, they will. For rulers are not a terror to good conduct, but to bad. Well, you would say generally that's true, but what if you live in, North Korea and Kim Jong-il? It's he's a terror to good, but in general, this is the principle. Would you have no fear of the one who is in authority? Well, of course you have a fear. He's got the sword. Then do what is good, and you will receive his approval. For he is God's servant for your good. And the Apostle Paul knew all about that, being before Festus and Felix when he was on trial. But if you do wrong, be afraid, for he does not bear the sword in vain. For he is the servant of God, an avenger who carries out God's wrath on the wrongdoer. Now, that's the key there. An avenger of God's wrath on the wrongdoer. So these girls, so that the wrongdoer is against the state, against the nation, against the country. So the one who has the sword, the governing authority, has that to keep the laws. Well, these girls, 10 years ago, they said, we're out of here, we're gone. So they broke the law. They've made their bed, they lie in it, and that's it. So they went and joined a terror organization, ISIS, just like Hamas and Hezbollah, terror organization, okay? ISIS lost, and so now they want to come back. So here with regard to this stuff, so when it says, what do we get up to? Have no fear for the one who is in authority, do good, you'll receive his approval. He's a servant of good, an avenger who carries out God's wrath on the wrongdoer. Well, that simply is not the case when it comes to the Australian government and Tony Burke and Anthony Albanese. So they said, we're not going to repatriate these guys. We're not going to help them. But they have. They gave them passports after their passports were either taken off them or thrown out. But they got new passports. I guess after 10 years they expire anyway. So you had to apply for new passports. They got them. They weren't resisted. They got them. They have been repatriated. Now, are they going to get into the... They're in the system. They're on the ground now. So they are in the system. They are in our legal system. Well, do you think our legal system is going to, go all hard and, throw the book at them, is what we've heard? Not a chance, folks. We know that. It's just not a chance. Labor are weak at every point. They just are. Righteousness exalts a nation. Sin is a snare to the people. They are not keeping the laws that we've already got. And so with regard to this stuff, an avenger who carries out God's wrath on the wrongdoer, they have been the wrongdoers. Therefore, one must be in subjection, not only to avoid God's wrath, but also for the sake of conscience. For because of this, you also pay taxes. Well, yeah, we do. And in fact, tomorrow night, or Tuesday night, we're going to be paying more taxes. So you pay taxes for the authorities and ministers of God attending to this very thing. What thing? Basically, wrath on the wrongdoer. But they're not doing that. The point is that our government isn't doing what Paul says they should be doing in Romans 13. So the question is, what do we do? Not only as Australians, but those of us who are Christians who want to honour God and want to do the right thing. Folks, you've got to speak up. And because our government in this stuff is more than inefficient. This is actually corrupt. They're not doing their jobs. There are enough laws. We don't need more hate speech laws. We've got laws there now. These things are being restricted, so you can't do anything. But it minimises the folks that want to obey, and it actually allows more freedoms to those that are doing the wrong thing. A bit like restricting people's rights to own firearms, really. Now, I'm not going to get into the whole thing, but the reality is our firearms laws are strict enough, and yet you want to tighten those up. The issue is anti-Semitism, and bringing these girls back into Australia is basically saying, you know what, don't worry, we're happy to keep the agenda going. So think about this, folks. Think about how dodgy, bringing these girls in. So they are from a terror organisation, not any terror organisation, Islamic extremist death cult organisation. So at the moment we have got a royal commission, that is supposedly going into Jewish persecution in Australia and trying to fix that and sort that out. At that very time, you would think an ideal opportunity when these girls come knocking to get back into Australia, that the likes of Tony Burke, And Anthony Albanese and our Australian government would say, it's not wise, it's not smart, it's a bad time. You guys are staying in Syria. No, bring them back into Australia, putting through our court system when already we're paying a fortune, just in paying off tax, $25 billion a year just in interest on our $1 trillion debt level. And Albo and Tony Burke want to bring these girls back. It's a disgrace, folks. And so what do you do? Well, you've got to speak up. They're not keeping Romans 13 very well, because they are not they are not an avenger who carries out wrath on the wrongdoer. They have not only done wrong, they've done evil. Those Yazidi girls, think of it, were sex slaves, were murdered. Their husbands, their brothers, their fathers were murdered in a lot of times in front of them. These poor girls were taken, raped, passed around from man to man, and these girls that we've just brought back into the country, they were all part of that. They accepted that with marrying their ISIS fighters. So rather than an avenger who carries out God's wrath on the wrongdoer, they're supporting the wrongdoer. Rather than being an avenger, they're being an encourager. They're being a supporter. And that stuff just blows my mind. And so maybe we'll have our own day of adjustment, just like England is right now, and Britain, the UK, with regard to Keir Starmer. But man, it couldn't come sooner, could it?
That's something to think about.